It's a big day. We have altered the schedule slightly, and High Dive with Lee Stranahan is now going to be on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. How you feeling tonight, Lee?
I'm pretty good.
You're looking well. I'm glad that you're the guest tonight because it's been an historic occurrence there in Geneva and with this Joe Biden, Vladimir Putin summit. You're the most informed and most intelligent guy that I know when it comes to matters pertaining to Russia. You were in Helsinki for the Trump-Putin summit. What's your
Yeah.
take on what we saw today, Lee?
Well, so first off, the first thing people need to be well aware of is that almost everything you're going to hear about it from the media is completely wrong. Now, again, I'm talking to people who already don't trust the media, but I'm going to tell you, everybody you're hearing from, everybody in the media is completely wrong. And the reason why is the Republicans have come out, the Republicans have taken this stance that it's almost Biden derangement syndrome. I don't know how else to put it. That anything Biden's doing, they're going to criticize him. So Donald Trump met with Vladimir Putin, and Republicans thought it generally, broadly, thought it was a good idea. Now that Biden's done it, suddenly, and Donald Trump is partially to blame for this, uh, Jason.
Yeah.
He's even saying, well, he's being weak. And what Trump came out and said specifically was Biden, we were sanctioning Russia for the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is true. But and he said, and Biden's relieving the sanctions. Now, okay, let's stop there. And we've got people like Ted Cruz coming out and saying that Vladimir Putin is and always has been a communist. Now, that's stupid and totally incorrect. It's just he's not. Russia has a communist party right now. They have one. And under the Soviet Union, when it was the only party, he was a member of the Communist Party and he was with the KGB, and that was under the Soviet Union. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, he's clearly not a communist, and his policy and everything else. And what Trump was saying about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline violates any principle that any conservative, libertarian, right leaning person should have. Let me just explain one. Let's be very clear. Russia and Germany, two sovereign countries, right? We're going to do a pipeline that was going to bring gas from Russia, which has a lot of it, to Germany, which is close to it.
Yeah.
You follow me? So
Yeah.
Russia and Germany, anyone look at a map, they're close. And so, which is how, Germany was able to invade during World War II, is because you can get there. So the gas has been going through Ukraine, which was charging to do it. And Russia wanted to do it without going through it. But do you know who really wanted to do it? Germany.
Right.
Because Germany pays some of the highest energy prices in Europe. Now,
And Russia's loaded with natural gas, right? They supply like 80% of the natural gas to all of Europe. This is what the whole kerfuffle in Syria is all about.
and Russia has the most energy of any country. Between oil and gas, it's got the most, okay? It's the single biggest energy producing nation in the world. Now, you would think that as somebody on the right who believes in national sovereignty and trade and, for capitalism, for lack of a better word. This is none of our business. If Russia and Germany want to do business,
Right.
it's none of our business.
Shouldn't
Now,
be.
it shouldn't be, except unless you're in favor of crony capitalism, unless you can't compete on price and service. And then you need to get the government involved. And that's what's happening.
Hmm.
The US government was putting sanctions. And under the Trump administration, the BS excuse that they gave every time is human rights violations and all this stuff. And now Biden, and by the way, why did Biden do it? Biden said he's going to waive the sanctions. Why? Because A, they weren't working. Here's what I mean by they weren't working. This pipeline was still being built because, once again, not because Putin forced anybody or because Germany wanted it. And again, for good reason.
Well,
There's
just
nothing.
checking real quickly. Joe Biden, he's not the president of Germany, right?
No. But Germany had basically said to the US, this pipeline's happening and stop
Right.
trying to
Mess with it.
stop it because we don't want to pay high energy prices. And the US's excuse now is they don't want to give Russia too much power because of conflict and blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you, as somebody who believes, libertarian leaning conservative and, libertarian with a capital L, because I'm with the Libertarian Party now, and not the Republicans, because of this disgusting lack of principle on the Republicans' part. I think that actually having trade with a country makes you less likely to fight. I think it makes you less likely to go to war.
Right.
I think it
I
increases
think,
peace.
isn't that known? If you're making money with somebody, I mean, I was at this Palestinian protest yesterday, and there were, at the head of the protest, were a couple of Palestinian guys in what looked like a brand new convertible Ford Mustang to me. I'm feeling like if you had a house in like New Jersey or Staten Island or Long Island, and you had a Mustang and a job and food and something to occupy your time, you might not be that upset. You might build your life and kind of like do trade with people and be cool.
Well, let's save the Palestinian
Yeah, for another
Israel
day.
talk for another show because it's such a big topic. But
Yes.
real briefly, I will tell you that on my show, The Backstory, we've been talking about this for a few weeks. And one of the irritating things to me is that the Israel-Palestinian conflict, the Palestinian cause is sort of been adopted by the left. And in fact, by the
BLM
progressive
for
left.
sure.
It's AOC and people like that. I think you can make a 100% conservative libertarian property rights argument that taking people's land is wrong. I mean, it's just it's so I don't want to get because it's a big topic, but I'm just going to say that I think because where we're headed with this talk too about the G7 stuff, I'll go back to what I said at the very beginning. Nobody in the media is trustworthy on this stuff. Nobody, because everybody in the right-wing media is going right along with this Republican BS, and including 53 Congress people came out and said that we should stop the pipeline. It's not our pipeline to stop. It's two different countries. And we wouldn't like it if Russia was putting sanctions on us because we were trying to do a pipeline with Canada, which
or
is
something, right?
which is and by the way, they compare the Keystone pipeline, which the Biden administration did shut down. And I'm in South Dakota now. I oppose that. I think that pipeline should have happened.
Hmm.
But exactly the same principles. Why I don't think, but at least it's our business. At least
Right.
that's a pipeline between us and Canada, both of whom wanted it, right? So I think that should have happened. But I'm seeing Republicans go, Keystone should have happened. Yep, okay. And he should have stopped this. And there's no principle there. There's
No.
no principle whatsoever. And this goes back to stuff I've been talking about on the Russia situation. And I'll mention something about that because I know I'm going to announce something I announced last night for the first time.
Sure.
Uh, uh, I'm going to be doing a course starting on Monday, July 5th. It's going to be at least a 6-week course, could be 7 or 8, but at least 6 weeks. And it's about, I'm calling it the Clintons in the heart of Russiagate. And this is the stuff that nobody ever talks about Russiagate. Nobody ever talks about it. They never talk about Derek Shearer. They never talk about Brett Kimberlin. And what I'm going to do is, when I say a course, it won't just be me talking. I'm going to assign people, read this, watch this. And they need to come to the class every week prepared to talk about it. We'll do it on a Zoom call. And it's going to be $100 if you sign up. People can just get in touch with me and I'll send you more info and a way to sign up. But if people donated to me in the past, because people have donated to me in the past, they can take it for free. Or if they're part of Citizen Journalism School, they can take it for free. And
That's cool.
And part of the reason I'm doing it's a different, because again, you and I've known each other a long time, 30-something years, and I like teaching.
Yep. Hey, you
And
know
I
what,
used to
Lee?
do,
We
yeah.
walked by today on Charles Ortel's show. We walked right by the building where we used to do the Lightwave Expo New York.
Oh wow, Lenny.
Yeah. Yep.
That was you who put on the Lightwave Expo in New York,
And
and
that's how we
yeah. So
first met. But
I
people can
like
follow you
I
on Twitter at Stranahan and just send you a message there if they're not already connected with
just send
Lee.
me a
They're also,
DM or
yeah.
Stranahan@gmail.com. We've already had one sign up, and I just announced it last night. And if and I got to cap it at a certain number of people because I can't have I got to have a small enough group where everybody can participate. Does that make sense? And
Yep.
my idea, I mentioned this last night. My idea on this, Jason, is to then take this course. It's all going to be recorded too. So if you miss a session, you'll be able to see it and try to take those recordings and turn those into the skeleton of a book. You see what I'm
Cool.
saying?
Yeah.
And by the way, people who are on the Patreon are going to be getting some of this material, but not the full course, but some of this material and some of the book material. So that'll all be part of that. But I just want to mention that. But part of the reason I'm doing it is because the mistake a lot of people make is assuming that Russiagate was about Trump. It was not. It was about Russia. And Trump was collateral damage in that.
Well, he was in the way of their plan, sort of, wasn't he?
And he was too independent at the time for them. And he looked at it in a common sense way and just like, why are we fighting with Russia? Why?
Yeah.
It
Let's
didn't
do
make any
business with
sense
them.
to him. And
He's into
and
making
then
deals.
and unfortunately he became in foreign policy not as bad as the worst neocons, but close
Right.
as the worst neocons. And it was a huge betrayal. Trump he didn't get elected because he was a highly principled guy. He got elected through a force of his personality and talking about things like immigration and stuff like that. And unfortunately, the Republicans never had his back on Russiagate because they buy into all the BS. And in this course, and we'll talk about some of the stuff now. There's nothing I'm going to hold back for this course. It's just going to be a streamlined discussion style presentation of it. But understanding what really happened in Russiagate requires going back to the fall of the Soviet Union, the end of the 80s and the early 90s, and understanding that relationship. Now, this summit came at the end of a week where Joe Biden was in Europe and had the G7 meeting. And I read the entire 25-page, it's called the Carbis Bay Manifesto. And or I don't think, in a communique, forgive me, they didn't use manifesto. And I read the whole thing. And that's what we're going to talk about on the show today for the bulk of it. And
well, let me let everybody know, because we've got a new schedule. We're here on YouTube on Wednesday, and in just about 15 minutes, we're going to be doing the deep dive portion of High Dive with Lee Stranahan on patreon.com/Stranahan. Of course, we're also going to be on Patreon and Subscribestar/Crowdsource the Truth, and we're going to go deep on this, Lee.
Yeah, well, and the shallow part now we can do is I read the whole document, and here's what I want people to do. I want people to not be tricked by globalists. And the trick that globalists play on people is they get people in the street, Trump supporters and Antifa, to argue about capitalism versus, socialism, let's say.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And I want to be as clear as possible. And I don't like socialism and blah, 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 blah. And I've talked about those issues. None of this is a defense of socialism. But let me go up a level. Let me ask you something. Do you think the globalists that we're talking about, the billionaires who run the world, really are going to be affected by any of these debates about capitalism versus socialism?
No. I think they're going to continue to run Twitter and Microsoft and fly around in jets and do whatever, regardless of what happens to us.
That's right. There's no socialist communist revolution coming that's going to affect the guys who ski down the slopes at Davos every year. Okay? Or, who are well known at Chatham House. The people who run things know, I'll give you a perfect example. The communist revolution, 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution. Do you know who survived that with no problems? The British monarchy.
Right.
They weren't affected at all. The czars didn't do as well. Tsar Nicholas and his family, they didn't make out so well. But don't forget, England and Russia already didn't like them, right? In fact, furthermore, and remember this too about Russia. Russia was our ally, not just in the Revolutionary War, but in the Civil War, they were our ally. And the British weren't. The British were against the U.S. in the Civil War. And, aside from the World War II, which it's a whole other thing. But my point is that these debates about communism, even though some people were affected, the same people who run the world now, the British monarchy, that is at the heart of globalism. And I've talked a little bit before about Carol Quigley, about Anglo-Americanism, about the Cecil Rhodes, and that whole line that changed Great Britain from being our enemy in the Civil War to being the special relationship, and we love, and it's nothing to do with the people of the UK. It's the royals. That's the issue.
Well, and the military, the intelligence apparatus of the British government. But I mean, Lee, isn't this really just a deception, this special relationship?
Well, it's a special relationship that's been forged to keep the monarchy alive. And they've done it.
Yeah.
They've done it. They've completely succeeded. The monarchy is still alive. And by the way, still has tremendous wealth and a lot of power.
Yep.
When you're elected prime minister, you have to kneel before the queen. Right?
I don't understand how British people put up with the royal family. I had a conversation with a very intelligent British friend where I said essentially that. And I'll tell you, Lee, it was as if I had insulted his mother. He got very upset.
And that gets into a very interesting question of what motivates people. And we talked about propaganda and agitation in the past couple of weeks. It is the protecting the royal family. It makes no sense at all in 2021 that we have a royal family. How have they done it? How have they kept the emotional attachment? Because they manipulated the British people so that during World War II, for instance, people looked up to the Queen as though she was a bomb shelter or something,
Well, even that movie, The King's Speech, it was the king who's giving the speech, not the prime minister. Real quickly, because we have just about 4 or 5 minutes before we transition over to patreon.com/Stranahan and patreon.com and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Calator wants you to know that, according to World Oil, the United States is a large producer of petroleum and natural gas, the United States is the largest producer of petroleum and natural gas, and not Russia, says Calator.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're looking at. Russia's the biggest oil producing. I've looked it up recently.
It's big.
So I'm not sure.
Just wanted to let that guy's comment be read.
Yeah, that's fine. But I mean, I've looked it up, and if you have something different, that's fine. But I'll stand by what I said until I see something different. And it makes sense, because if you think about the land mass that Russia covers, it's huge. Russia covers a huge amount of land. And so it has nothing, in a sense, just right there. It would be logical that they would have an advantage there. But so I'm not sure if they're talking about.
I think it's one of those arguments that, depending on how you slice it, you get a different answer. Just searching, which country's the largest producer of energy says that China is the largest producer of electricity. But I mean, again, this is another show. Suffice it to say, Russia's definitely in the top 3.
Yeah. That right, and that's the point. So before we finish here, what we're going to talk about in the second part, but I want people to think about, even if they don't stick around for the second part, is don't get suckered into thinking that this communique is an example of socialism or corporatism, capitalism. It's both. It's both, and it's neither. It is not a call for communism. That's not what it is. And as soon as you start thinking that's what it is, you're missing the actual point. And that's what we'll get into. We'll talk about what's in it. And I'm not saying I'm not saying it's good. It's bad. But it's bad in a way that if your reaction is to go, oh, G7 at communism. No, it's not. But it's not capitalism either. It's a very technocratic.
It's globalism.
Yes, globalism. So fight the real enemy here. Don't get into those debates, because again, the people who craft this stuff, they're in favor of whatever they want to be at whatever point they need to be to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
That's it. So
Well, Lee, we're out of time here on the intro, but people are going to join us on patreon.com/Stranahan, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll be back in just 5 minutes. We're going to cover this. I want to ask you also about Alexei Navalny, about Putin's responses, and the media in the United States, their responses to what Putin said, to what Biden said. We're going to cover all of that. Join us
yeah.
on Patreon and Subscribe Star. We'll see everybody in 5 minutes. Thanks for watching.